It's Roland and Alexey, and if you have noticed, so I will turn back to the cameraman. We are on a European tour for our topologists. We started touring a year ago, and we just cannot stop touring. One small story about it: we are both failed musicians. We try to play in bands, and we fail. So this is our way to, I guess, overcompensate for that. But we are different than musicians, 2 reasons. First one, we don't smell that bad. We fly home from time to time and we change clothes. And secondly, you know, when you are touring with a band, you typically play the same program every time, the same set, they call it, every time. And actually, we do it completely opposite. We change the slides every time. So every time it's a completely new topic, new slide deck, new stream of ideas.
Yeah, same subject, new approach.
Same subject, org topologies. And yeah, it's a joke and a funny exercise to see the difference between the previous talk, the other topologies, and org topologies. So these are very different subjects. All right, so before we go to the next slide, right, so I said we change the slide order, and sometimes we spend on the problem for quite some time, and then only at the end, like 1 minute before the lunch break, we show the solution, the map. This time we do it the other way around. We go with the solution first.
Yeah, let's start with the cliffhanger.
And then we will show you what you can do with that. So that's the solution.
Give the people just a couple of seconds to take this in.
That's the org topologies map.
Yeah.
And
help people, there's a lot of work.
The biggest scale of the map I've ever seen in my life. The stage is so huge.
It's impressive, yeah. So this is our addiction, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm leaving out a couple of those boxes to save your brains from exploding. You know, we heard about cognitive load. As you can see, there are 7 boxes filled. When we were working with companies as consultants, we start to see all kinds of structures that were repeating and that were kind of interesting. And we recognize them as organizational building blocks. Most of these building blocks, these boxes, you might recognize as teams or sort of teams. And as we were starting to puzzle our periodic table, because we were discovering new stuff all the time, we started to look for a way to structure them. And actually, what was interesting is, well, companies exist, to stay relevant for a very long time for customers. They want to make money, and they don't want to die next year. So it would be interesting to see if we could group those organizational building blocks in relation to maximum adaptivity. And for that, we looked at 2 axes. The horizontal axis, which is how good is a team at delivering to a customer. So in Scrum terms, that could be the completeness of your definition of done. The skills that are available in the team or in the group. And then there's this second dimension, which is new for many people, but is very important, because it's about the breadth, the size of the product that the team is working on. So the focus that the team has. Is it only a very narrow one? Is it task-oriented? Or is it a very broad one? Are they working on any aspect of the product?
Yeah. And we know that Victor did yesterday a workshop on feature team adoption map. Anybody been on that workshop? Yeah, so this you can find a similar tool. It's kind of related. It's in the same family of tools, but we use it slightly different than the feature team adoption map. So for those who know these 2 tools, stay tuned. Yeah, so do you guys like the colors? We spent like a year trying to pick the right colors, and then like in this project of finding the right colors and the right design, we spoke to our designer, and he said, your map should be just black and white. And we said, like, why?
Wow.
He said, it's the most boring topic on earth, this org design. And it took us for quite a while time to really unbundle this one and really understand like what he means by that. Why for him it's such a boring topic. Essentially, he sees only boxes, and of course it's a super boring 4x4 matrix. But we see something different behind these boxes. So we see this, right? we see human interaction. Like every box or every number of boxes on the map, they represent some kind of a interaction mode. You can say system of relationship between different teams. Like in this example, in these photos, these are photos from a less adoption at a company called Poster in Ukraine, where on the top left picture, you see teams doing what we call a team self-design workshop. So typically, the teams are reforming. And we went from like a very narrowly specialized teams to very broad teams. So speaking from topologies, org topologies, this was actually a jump from left corner to top right corner. So we see people, and we will show a lot of maps today in the remaining 33 minutes, but please be aware, it's all about people, right? And try to see interaction between people behind these boxes.
Yeah. So we're not here to fully explain the deeper details of this map. You can do it by reading stuff on the website. That's for later. For now, we want to show you what you can do with it, so that you might have the interest to learn a little bit better on how it's constructed.
Yeah, and we figured the conference is Agile by example, I guess.
Yeah, so let's do some examples.
So we will just go with examples.
Right.
How we can use this tool and how you can apply it and which benefits you can get out of it.
Take it away.
Yeah, so for example, well, you can use this map, actually to study your different types of teams you have. In the previous talk, the speakers spoke about different, team archetypes based on team topologies, but here you can be more specific. You can say, well, there's a back-end team, and you place it in Y1 box because this is a functional team. They don't do testing, they just build some kind of a back-end for something, let's say. And maybe it's not just one team, maybe it's just 5 teams of the same family. They reside in this picture. So now, Roland, imagine I'm a Scrum Master in this company, and I'm said, okay, you need to do an Agile transformation.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah,
wish you luck.
I can be a Scrum Master for this team. I can show them the book of team topologies. I can do some magic, but probably it will not work. Anybody's in Agile transformations here in the room? I would expect to see some hands.
Lots
Anybody done with Agile transformation? No, so it's a constant struggle somehow to really understand what is the next step. And for this team, I guess the next step would be to move them somewhere up there so they really understand better the customer, the problems they are solving, not just be stuck with their backend work. But if you try to move this team somewhere above, you'll be surprised it will not going to work likely.
No, but
why?
There will be a lot of resistance. There will be, from all kinds of angles you maybe would have anticipated, people will resist to change. We are aware of that.
But not only that.
Yeah.
Because there are some other teams or some other structures in this company which support this team being so low on org topologies, right? We all understand for a backend team to work, well, they probably need to rely on some kind of analysts who actually higher on the map because they likely understand user stories or user journeys or customer problems. They understand business requirements, and they can chop these requirements and feed to the backend team. And this feeding down to the backend team, that's how this backend team stays at the lowest level, because they don't need to study requirements because there's somebody who is giving them requirements.
From their point of view, the world is perfect, right? Because they get everything they need really at the right level.
Funnily enough,
they don't see a problem.
Yeah, funnily enough, if you go and talk to people from the backend team, you hear things like, oh, actually, we don't have any dependencies. And from their perspective, they have a list of things to be done in the backend. They don't have any dependencies. But from a higher view, from the customer view, or from a customer journey point of view, oh, there are a lot of kind of different dependencies. And this one specific type of dependencies is called, in literature, reciprocal dependencies. And it's a fancy word in English. Typically means I need you, you need me kind of dependency. Yeah, so like backend team needs analysts to give them requirements, right? but they also need the other way around because analysts cannot do backend, so they actually need backend people, so they need each other. The same would happen with the backend team and testers. Backend developers need testers to test, but testers need backend developers to actually fix the bugs. Yeah. Every time you have this kind of a very tight reciprocal dependency, you should think, okay, we need to put these people in one team, because otherwise there will be just a lot of dependencies.
And if you're driving change, you should take them both into consideration. You cannot just focus on the back-end team.
Yeah, but it's not so easy just to merge these two boxes into one team.
There's even more.
Because there are a few more boxes on the picture. For example, well, hopefully there is some front-end team, right? And why we put it up there? Well, because front-end team sometimes can do features for the customers maybe without asking for a back-end team to change the backend. So sometimes you can do front-end heavy features just because you have all the APIs already. But for a lot of other features, which typically go through the full stack of your technology, you need all these three boxes to work together. And that's why pushing just one box somewhere up there will not work. And again, some more dependencies. Yep. Are we done yet?
No.
Well,
the architects.
Somebody also needs to oversee the solution or architecture or whatever you call it. Right? You can put a product owner up there or an architect group, somebody who really understands the customer problem and, well, different dependencies. Yeah. Why are we talking about this?
Why we're talking about this? Well, if you want to do a change, you have to look at the whole ecosystem. Because all those elements in the ecosystem will keep each other in place. It makes an ecosystem sticky. If you're going to just change the back-end team, then the analysts are going to complain. They don't like that. If you're going to engage in a change, you will need to motivate or get the analysts to understand the problem as well. So it requires some system thinking, some global view on the whole working of these elements, how they produce value together.
Excellent. Yeah, so staying on the examples, right? What you can do with Octopologist map, you can map on the map, yeah? It's obvious. You can map, in this case, ecosystems, right? You can map different relationship between your different archetypes. Maybe there will be more functional team and more component teams and some feature teams or development teams or functional teams and architecture group. You can map them all together and try then to have a, step back like a painter. And it's like, okay, this is my ecosystem. Well, now at least you have a bigger picture, and now maybe the changes you are making will be more systemic. You will not be just trying to push one box somewhere up there, which will not work. You will need to take a systemic approach to that.
It's maybe not bad news, because it's actually at the same time also good news, because now you know what you have to work with it, like you just said. And then you can call yourself Agile Ecosystem Designer, which is also cool.
Which is a way, yeah.
All right.
So
this brings us to those names in these little boxes. Now you can say and show your map, and you can talk to people, actually, you are in Y1, predominantly. Or, hey, you have a combination of incomplete teams being A2.
Sometimes Roland will call me and say, Alexey, I have this client, I talk to them, and I visit them, and they are preliminary A2 company.
Then we know.
He just said A2, like two symbols, two sounds, but actually, do you understand if Roland will call you and say there's an A2 kind of company out there?
Maybe ask for hands. Is there anybody who could say, yeah, I kind of recognize where I am with my team or with my group? 1 hand, 2 hands, 3. Yeah, okay, see.
A2 will
it's not that difficult to determine where you are at the map.
A2, just to be really transparent here, will mean, well, it's already cross-functional team, so they can do hopefully some development, some analysis, some testing, but they're not completely autonomous because maybe they don't own the production environment or something like that. They are much better than functional groups because now you have a cross-functional work going on. Maybe they also work across different components slightly. And on the vertical axis, they work on a feature focus. Our favorite example is a search team. A search team who doesn't have access to production environment will be an example of A2. So it's a team which always work on search features. Anybody working on search here? Yeah, so typically you have, and it's like where 80% of the teams are in all of the companies. It's like they are given the specific narrow feature set to work on. And of course, as a Scrum Master, your job, if this is your team, you can try to bring them to the right side of the map, trying to make them actually own that production environment, automate deployment, and then maybe after a year, they now a 3 team, which is a great advantage because now the flow of change, they still just know search. That might be a problem, but at least whatever there is for search,
faster.
They can be really fast. So A2 to A3 can be an agile transformation.
Absolutely.
Y1 to A2 can be an agile transformation. A2 to C3 can be an agile transformation. So when we say agile, we should be really specific what we mean. This is why we call this common language. And I wonder how we actually survived before topologies were invented. How did we actually talk to each other?
Well, it takes a while before you've explained what is going on in your company, and now you can do it faster. So.
Well, we're not trying to oversimplify it, but that's the idea, right? This is some kind of a common language, and we spent the last 2 years telling each other stories of all different companies we saw, trying to see if we're missing a box. And apparently, a lot of cases can be put into this map, and then you have a systemic view.
But we challenge everybody to maybe come up with an organizational design that has elements that are not in our map yet, because we would really like to learn. Yeah. Now, I mean, this is a nice example, mapping an organizational design.
Let's have some more examples.
Let's have some more examples. Yes.
All right. So another view of how we can use org topologies is to do what we call org scans. So you have a map which you can help to classify different teams. But then you kind of fly over that group of teams, and you look at them from the top, and you say, okay, I have these 5 teams, or like 6 teams, which are Y1-ish teams. So they are kind of really functional teams. They don't really do a lot of other things. And these other 3 teams, that are more like A2-ish teams. They already understand customer language. They have user stories in the backlogs. They're a little bit higher on the map. And this gives you like a scan of your organization, right? And then what you can do, and this is an example of my last case adoption study where you can actually then create an experiment or design a new organization. And then you can say, okay, how about we, instead of those very low-level archetyped 9 teams, we create 6 teams, which will be, in less terms, feature teams, which will classify them as C3 teams. C3 because they are very much advanced on the definition of done on the horizontal axis, and they are actually very much advanced on the vertical axis because they understand the whole product. There's no more search team. There is just a team.
Just imagine how fast you can change direction at no additional cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to sell you any framework, but we're just giving you examples how you can use org topologies to benefit your agile, hopefully ongoing agile transformation, and maybe introduce more clarity into where you are. And speaking of clarity, some more examples.
Yeah, but a little word of warning. Although these images are simple and easy accessible, really going to the nitty-gritty and understanding what the organization is before you have the map, it takes a little bit of brain power. So don't think you just do it and then it's done. It will take a little bit of time before you.
Yeah, we're not trying to oversimplify things, but we're trying to come up with a tool which can help us to have meaningful discussions about this agile transformation thing. So more examples? Do you have more examples?
I think so. Yeah.
A few more examples. Question to you guys: how do you map safe on the picture? And we are not in a safe bashing business.
Listen, it's just that in a lot of companies where I come, they do safe, some form of safe. But there's different forms of safe. Some safe is better than other. And like, where does it sit exactly? I would like to know. And then we tried to find out what the characteristics were of the teams that were together in those PI plannings and working together in those arts. And we kind of find out. That's where it sits.
there are different types of safe, apparently. So safe implementation then span whole variety of different org archetypes. You can have a very bad safe adoption with very, component-oriented functional teams who just understand one specific component, like a backend for search, maybe, and then you have a lot of dependencies between them. Good luck to you with this agile transformation. You can have another safe adoption, and we're not big proponents of safe, but if it's a tool that helps you to move up on the map, that's perfect. But another safe adoption would be, let's improve the team structure. Let's make sure each team actually is a cross-functional team, and maybe there's an open-sourced idea in the company, and teams can actually learn with each other, from each other, and then there will be a better version of safe, right?
Yeah, but you're still doing safe.
You're still doing safe, and we actually, in the previous version of the slide, like yesterday, no, like a month ago, the blue box was spanning slightly to the B part, because we didn't try to show, tell.
But we got some feedback on that.
And then somebody came to us after the talk and say, guys, I know you're trying to be good to safe. The guy said, we're like, no, we're just trying to be frankful. And he said, I work in this big German bank, and we do safe, and I'm a safe expert. He says, safe doesn't go above A. Because whatever you do, all these PI plannings and attempts to align on dependencies, after this big alignment show of 2 days, teams will go back to the cubicles or Zoom calls and will still own the little part of the system. So maybe a search team, an iOS team, etc. And we're like, okay, if you say so because you're an expert,
It's because actually it sticks at alignment. There's no deep collaboration. It's not that people of different teams go sit together, open repositories, and then really start coding together. That's why we can say that it doesn't go to B, because that's what happens at the B level.
And we give you some more example what is to be at the B, at the C level of the map, but few more topics about the safe, right? So maybe you use the map. By the way, you can download it from the website, you can print it out, or you can draw it on a flip chart, talk to your colleagues, your managers, and really try to understand where we sit, right? And by where we sit there, I mean where the majority of your teams sit. Maybe you find yourself in that smaller spot. Well, now you can talk and discuss what you want to do with that. Do you want to go horizontal, improving definition of done? You want to go slightly vertical? You want to combine those moves? Now you can have a meaningful discussion with your managers. And the most important thing is that you can own the change, right? It's not anymore the goal is to implement safe or to implement these 500 slides of a safe consultant. The goal is to improve your organization by first understanding where you are, secondly, knowing where you want to go, and thirdly, planning steps across that. So we call this maps because this what map in the real world help us to know where you are, where you want to go, how you get there.
And then the objection of, yeah, but you guys map everything against highest adaptivity. And maybe that's not our goal, so then your map won't work. Well, I'm telling you, we were recently at a company who did not have high adaptivity as their main goal. They wanted to become more predictable. And although they had a different goal, the map still showed them very good points where they could improve to become more predictable. So even although you're not going for high adaptability, you might want to consider looking where you are and understand better what you can do to improve on what you want to achieve.
And maybe adaptability is a fancy subject your managers don't understand, and we actually want you to do this with your managers so they actually understand what agile transformation really means. But maybe adaptability is not the word they understand, but they definitely will agree to the statement that, yes, we want our business to be resilient, or we want our business to be there in 5 years from now. And if you want your business to be there in 5 years from now, giving value to the customers, guess what? You need to be discovering value and delivering that value and learning from your feedback, which is, in essence, you can say, adaptivity. right? But let's look at some more examples, because we're the example conference. Just read and look at the slide. Probably self-explanatory. Maybe not. Maybe yes.
It's a bit weird.
Yeah. We figured as a very small startup company, like, with 3 guys and a dog in a garage, they are super adaptive, because if tomorrow some of them learn something new about the customer or a problem or a product, they will just change the direction. But then as companies grow and, hire people and turn into a bureaucratic organization, that they're like, boom, they fall down based on octopologies. Now they come down as agiles from the sky.
A new backend developer comes in, they get traction. Another backend developer comes in, they all go sit together with the guy who started the developing.
Yeah.
And then, there's a front ender needed because they couldn't get a full stack guy or whatever. So before you know it, you'll have these groups of people sitting together. You're creating departments. When you're really growing fast, you don't think about org design. You're so happy with your success of your startup that you're scaling the wrong way around, actually.
So and look at this map.
Yeah.
We can say an agile transformation is a way to get back the youth to the company. Not firing people. You might still need all these 50 people you have, but really trying to go back to how we worked when we were just 3 people and a dog. Can we just maybe talk to each other, and just get things done at one table? So agile transformation is about actually remembering how things were fast and easy when you were just a small, young, super ambitious company.
Another one?
And another example?
Yep.
Output-driven, outcome-oriented.
Yeah, so we noticed that what we call lower archetypes, so Y and A, they are really output-driven. It's about output, getting faster teams. And as we go up, there's more focus for the outcomes that brings.
Yeah, and you can ask, well, why we're having this weird naming, like Y, A, B, C? Don't we know alphabet? This is a new alphabet, ladies and gentlemen. Y, A, B, C. No, actually, A stands for like agile with a small letter, agile at the team level. And agile at the team level is actually still output driven. So if you're giving a search team user stories for the search, it's still very much output driven because likely they don't really understand what the customer wants. B is for the business outcomes. B is for the business result. B is for a business stakeholder. Imagine Roland is a business stakeholder in a company which has a search team, a basket team, and a payment team. And he wants to increase, say, retention in the company because this is very important for customers to come back and leave more money to pay. Well, he actually cannot do that because then every team, search team, basket team, the payment team will have to do something. So the A-level organizations are not really fit to serve a business stakeholder because essentially you would need to cut the demand or the request or the idea for retention to fit into search backlog, the payment backlog, the basket backlog, the whatnot backlog, and then you have the dependencies again. So these are different kind of dependencies. We sometimes call them logical dependencies. But B is where you can have one team which can just do everything Roland wants them to do. That they can just start experimenting how to increase retention. Maybe they tweak something in a search. Maybe they tweak something in a payment method. Maybe they do something else. It doesn't mean they know everything. Well, there are still other people in the company. They can talk to each other. Or maybe it's 5 teams at a B level who together own this full spectrum of technologies, and they can just satisfy Roland's dream of high retention by doing that.
And then C stands for customer?
And C is for customer. C is where there's no like a retention business owner and acquisition business owner. Everybody just works on the problem space, on the whole product.
And then that leaves us why. Why did we have why?
Why do we have why?
Yeah, well, we ask ourselves, why are people still there, Why?
Why are we doing this to people? Why do you need to micromanage people? From 9 to 6, we micromanage them. From 6 to 9, they go make children, bring up children, build houses, win wars. Yeah, so Just stop doing that with your people. At least go to A level. That's where you can really see the power of Scrum, for example. If you move from Y1 to A2 or A3, wow happens. You don't need to micromanage the team anymore, giving them tasks. You can just give some kind of a customer problem, user story. As a user, I once saw that, and just leave the team alone for a week or two, and they will hopefully figure out what to do with that. If they fail, they will learn, and they will figure out again.
Yeah. So actually, up until now, we showed a subset of maps that that we are creating constantly, and there's like no end to whatever we find that we can map. So we have a map for that. You know, there will be another map coming.
We're in a mapping business.
We're in the mapping business. Yeah.
Going back to the name of this talk in the conference program, it says, drive the second wave of the Agile revolution with org topologies. Yeah, so what is this second wave? Let's try to spend the remaining 8 minutes to elaborate on that subject.
In the lower archetypes, there's actually walls around the teams. The teams were central. We were trying to make faster teams, better teams. Scrum Masters were focusing on moving to the right, getting a better definition of done.
Yeah.
And that kind of created new silos. Let's be honest. Those new fast agile teams actually are silos, and they're optimizing locally for what they're specialized in. And that would be what we've been doing so far, you know, mostly in big organizations especially. And that's why we hear and we see comments going like, yeah, Agile is dead, it doesn't work, didn't deliver on its promise. And actually, it's not true. It's because of the way that we implement it. If we start adding that second dimension to our Agile teams and give them more space to work in.
Vertical dimension, right? Going up, trying to trying to understand broader the problem, the customer. You'll be surprised, developers can't talk to customers.
Yes, they can. Yeah.
Well, maybe you don't leave them alone with the customer. Maybe you bring a product manager or business analyst if you're super scared. But just letting developers experience somebody talking to the customer usually creates a lot of interesting discussions and actually raises the team awareness to a B and C level.
So an example could be that maybe makes it more clear, where in the A level the team is doing Scrum, in the higher archetypes there's teams of teams, like everybody is sharing the same Scrum space, you know, the same cadence.
Yeah, so if you're in a Scrum world, at the B and C level you have Scrum with multiple teams. You can call it large-scale Scrum. You can also look at the things called fast, where just you change teams on very often, a few times a week. It's maybe a weird suggestion, but the idea is not to implement a framework. The idea is to find the walls which fall first. So this second wave of Agile transformation, or the second Agile wave, is about trying to remove the walls that we actually put between individuals and teams. And this is what we think is what we all will be busy with you for the next maybe 10, 20 years. Maybe we will not call it Agile, doesn't really matter. But we need to stop seeing those transparent walls between us. Luckily,
last year,
Craig Larman spoke at this conference. Anybody been at his talk? Yeah, we have returning customers here. Very good. And he actually said the following, right? If you call it a process change, you'll get management support. But management support is not enough to drive a real change. But if you call it an org design change, any C-level person will think, okay, well, they're about to change the structure. I cannot just support them, just guys do it. I actually need to be with them. Okay?
And the org change, that's what happens when you go to the higher archetypes. All right. Looking at the time, we need to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're going to do the next one, and then we're going to skip some others. So if those B and C level are so cool,
why don't we just do it?
Why so many organizations get stuck at the Y and A level? Anybody in the room believes from what you've learned so far you are a B and C level? We're not going to make any bad jokes about it. Just a quick check. Yeah? One hand. It's really hard to see, guys.
Okay.
Two hands. Yeah, so a lot of companies are at a lower level of the map. Why? Well, because of all those things on the left side of the screen, right?
It's very difficult. The organizational structures are very sticky. And because people do not really see how the ecosystem...
Stinky or sticky?
Sticky.
Okay, it's good that I clarified that one.
Because we don't see all the elements really very clearly, how things are interdependent and how they keep each other in place. Yeah, they just stay where they are. And look at it, if you turn it around, you know, what do you need to do to go higher? You need to think about maybe solving the problem you see with maybe you see with cognitive load. Or maybe, you know, a product backlog per team. Is that really such a good idea? So we really need to ask ourselves deeper questions and then reorganize ourselves. But hey, it's not that simple. Deleting one product backlog means one product owner will be out of work. Right? We need to repurpose those people. Yep.
Yeah. Skip next one.
Next
skip
one, next one.
And land on this one. We have a lot of maps, more maps than you can actually do in one day, so don't worry. We have a growing community of people who are trying these approaches and in the companies, and they said, well, that really changes, improves the discussions they have with their management on, well, what is that agile that we are really doing here? What is this agile transformation? What are we actually doing? Are we trying to just improve teams individually? A good goal? Or are we trying to create an ecosystem where multiple teams will be working together? You can be one of these champions and ambassadors. If you're using our topologies in your company, just send us a message. We will talk to you and you will be famous forever.
Yes.
We will make you famous.
Definitely.
Well, essentially, we just are trying to collect enough evidence that this thinking works, because it's a pretty fresh idea. We believe it's true, but we want you to actually use this QR code, go to the website, download the map, print it, use it in your company, and please report back to us, because we are very much in a learning phase.
It's not in Polish yet, but it will be available in Polish as well, hopefully, someday.
And go get your map and own your change. Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes for questions, I believe.
I think we can have a bit more, because there are lots of questions. I think you kind of answered one, because, there are 2 questions about practical examples. Are there any companies that are already using that? But I guess you kind of answered that already.
I can answer to that still. It's not about any company using this or not using this. It's a language where you can map any company. We are doing a 2-day class where we actually look at different frameworks and ideas. For example, people were surprised. You can take team topologies, the previous talk. You can take team topologies and analyze every type of the team they have in team topologies based on where you are on the map. You'll be surprised what you see. Yeah. But do it at home and see where you'll end up with team topologies. But you can analyze, I assume, any org design. So it's not about use this to drive your next agile change. No, it's not a framework. It's an inspirational model to help you have better.
Yeah, and also, it's not that Alexey is trying to avoid giving the answer. Yes, there are people in big companies using this, and even more than we know, because we just spread the stuff for free, and people are using it, and every once in a while they come back to us. Like, we were at the LES conference last week, and Flixbus was showing their transformation. They were using org topologies to explain their path. I mean, we didn't. This just happens.
And I guess we are somewhere in between org topologies and lunch now in our transformation. So I see people transforming already slowly. We will be done in 1 minute or so, right? So maybe last question.
Yeah,
Andy?
the last question is very specific. Who should rate a company or a team base level, and how to prepare progression pathways? Is it a job for C-level managers or Scrum Masters, or whose jobs it is?
Yes. The answer to that is yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's everybody's job. Thank you so much.